Welcome, he's Joe Rapolo.
That's JB Buno.
And you are watching the third episode of Sports Report. Once again, he's Joe, I'm JB, and thank you for tuning in to ATV SportsReport. We got a lot in this week's episode. We're going to talk about primarily Albany sports. The men's basketball team, a lot going on with them right now, heading into the conference championships, or the conference tournament, I should say. The women's basketball team, disappointing season for them. We finally have some stuff to talk about when it comes to Albany baseball, Albany softball. They've been on the road the past week or so. But we also got professional sports, right?
That's right. We got a lot of pro sports to talk about. Obviously, we have some information on the situation that's been developing with the Patriots and the Chiefs this week. Obviously, Matt Castle, a big part of the Patriots team last year, going over to the Kansas City Chiefs. And then the Jay Cutler situation, which has developed recently this week. And also, of course, we got to talk about A-Rod, right? Mr. New York Yankee. We got to talk about what's been going on with him, who thinks he's lying, who thinks he's telling the truth, and it's going to be an interesting show.
Yeah, a lot of Yankee fans out there, and I know this has been a heartbreaking couple of weeks. I mean, everyone was so excited for CC Sabathia, the arrival of A.J. Burnett, Mark Teixeira, and this is not the type of hype that Yankee fans wanted going into spring training into Tampa with opening up a new ballpark. So the A-Rod thing, we're going to be going over a lot on that, but we're going to go right into men's lax. A lot of hype for the men's lacrosse team, huh?
A lot of hype for the lacrosse team. Obviously, having been to 7 conference championships in the past 7 years, puts a lot of weight on the shoulders of the lacrosse team to perform this year, and obviously they want to get off to a good start against Denver.
Yep. The Denver Pioneers came to the University at Albany. We're not going to keep you on the edge of your seat. Let's go right to the highlights. The University at Albany men's lacrosse team is certainly one of UAlbany's premier programs. Here we see the preseason conference poll as UAlbany's predicted to finish second behind UMBC. But for the home opener, it was about the Denver Pioneers. I think it's safe to say, though, that Denver players know what it's like to play in extremely cold weather. Denver is a very cold place. The average February temperature in Denver, Colorado is 33 degrees. And by sheer luck for UAlbany, temperature on game day as Denver takes on UAlbany and Albany, New York, also 33 degrees, possibly a bad omen. Here we see the very athletic goal by Denver. Denver was really able to take control throughout this one. Here we see Dave Brock fire in this goal. UAlbany was able to lead a fourth period charge. They were able to get within one goal. On this final possession for UAlbany, it all comes down to this, but in the end, it's goalkeeper Peter Lowell for Denver making the huge save and killing the Albany threat. They steal the home opener from Albany, 10-9. So heartbreaking loss for the UAlbany men's lacrosse team, especially in their home opener in front of their hometown fans. I mean, it wasn't that much of a home opener, I gotta mention, because everyone was really on break. There weren't many students there. A lot of locals came out, so it was a big event. But it was still the home opener, and they lose to the Denver Pioneers at home. Kind of a rough loss, especially after that comeback in the final minutes. They had that final possession in which they could have tied it up and sent this thing to overtime, but wasn't enough. And they lose the first game of the season.
It's definitely a tough loss when you have a comeback like that and then you fall short at the last second.
Absolutely.
Especially the way they did, having the last possession and being able to get back in the game, and then it's just not happening in the end for them.
Especially, like we said earlier, with all the hype and getting off to a good start, getting your foot through the door with a win at home, it would have been really, really uplifting for them. But it was a tough loss. But you think, I'm in the highlights, I mentioned something about the weather. Do you think that because it was cold that day down at the field. It was also very windy. I didn't really mention that, but very, very windy down on the field. Do you think that the weather really had to play much of a factor in it? Because, Denver's cold.
Denver is cold, and I'd like to say that the weather did have an effect on the way the Danes played, but you pointed something out about the weather. The average temperature on the field in Denver when play these lacrosse games is 33 degrees. It just so happened to be 33 degrees on the field when Denver came to play UAlbany this week. And as for the UAlbany men, we play in the Northeast. They're definitely used to playing in the cold. The weather shouldn't have as much of an effect on them as it did, especially when it comes to winning or losing the game. You should be able to block those things out of your mind and be able to perform when it comes crunch time, regardless of what the weather is like.
Absolutely, and they weren't doing as many subs, and I think that was done for a reason, because if you keep the same, maybe 12 to 15 players out there, you're keeping them warm.
Exactly.
If you're rotating more and more players in, it's getting more and more of them cold. So maybe I don't know, maybe the cold did have a little bit of a factor, but it was sunny, and the sun was shining down. They were playing in front of their hometown fans, so it was a loss that I don't think you can really blame entirely on the weather, and maybe not even at all on the weather.
No, I feel that the crowd had more of an impact on the team than the weather did. To be honest with you, when you're playing on your home field, there's a point to the home field advantage, giving you that little extra effort that you need. It's when you have that crowd behind you, when your teammates and your schoolmates are able to support you, and the fact that the fan base was a little low for that game, and they didn't have nearly as much of the support from the fans as they would have liked to. I think that might have had an effect on them. Right.
So they lose the first game, and they go into game number 2, and this is huge for them because they lose at home, the home opener, to the Denver Pioneers, and then of course game number 2 comes against crosstown rivals.
Siena Saints.
Got Siena. So how important was it for them to really show up against Siena?
Oh, it was incredibly important. You can't lose the first 2 games of the season, especially a team with this type of expectations put on them, and even more especially to the crosstown rivals, the Siena Saints.
Yeah, absolutely. The rivalry between Siena and UAlbany is a fun one, and it's so important to not start the season 0-2. UAlbany is a notably better men's lacrosse team than Siena is, so losing that game, I think, really would have been an embarrassing way to start the season, especially with all the hype. But they pulled out a win, didn't they?
They did, and it was a nail-biter, too. I mean, the numbers don't necessarily say who's going to win come game time, it's anybody's game. Whoever wants it more is going to pull it out in the end, and it was good to see that the Danes were on top of their game against the Saints.
Yeah, I heard the game was extremely exciting from friends that were there. Unfortunately, SportsReport wasn't able to go. We only cover University at Albany home games. I really wish we could have been there for this one, though, as sophomore Joe Pompo put in the game-winning goal with 32 seconds to go, not in regulation, not in overtime, but double overtime.
Double overtime.
So really big nail-biter. Siena falls to 0-2 on the season, and UAlbany now 1-1. So much better than 0-2, though.
That's true, and the way they pulled it off, the way they got to that double overtime was a goal with 0.3 seconds left on the clock. 0.3 seconds. Yeah. It doesn't get any closer than that, guys.
Absolutely.
So big props to the men's team for holding out and being able to play every minute, because every minute counts. We all know.
Absolutely. So huge turnaround for the men's lacrosse team. Kudos to them. Really great job. From what I heard, they looked much sharper, especially in the second half of that game. So probably brighter days ahead, especially as the weather gets a little bit better down the line in the coming weeks for UAlbany.
Hopefully it took a game and a half of poor play for them to realize that this is the real deal. The season has started. It's time to get a move on, and it's time to start performing at the level that everybody hopes that they can achieve.
Absolutely. So while UAlbany is it's got some teams that are doing okay, some teams that are doing a little worse, but we can talk about professional sports. This isn't just for UAlbany sports, right? So let's go right into A-Rod. I've been dying to get my opinion out on this show about the whole A-Rod situation, because this is just, as a Yankee fan, I could say that it's a blow. I know you're a Met fan, Joe, so we can talk about this. We got some fun with this. What did you first think when you heard the news about A-Rod?
The first thing I thought, I was surprised, to be honest with you, and to be honest, I was a little disappointed. Having seen everything that's gone on in the past few years with Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens and the home run records and the way that baseball has panned out over the past couple of years of the steroid era, as it's been come to know now, I think not just Yankees fans, but everybody kind of saw Alex Rodriguez as this white light, as the man that was going to save baseball, the guy who was clean from beginning to end, who was going to break records on his own, didn't need any type of help whatsoever. And now for this type of information to come out, especially after he just signed a 10-year contract like he did, we know he's not going anywhere. It's a real blow to him and the Yankees organization as a whole.
Absolutely. Interesting enough, though, is that he spoke about that he only used steroids, or Boli, as he said it in the press conference. It was from the Dominican Republic. He only used it in Texas uniform. How big is that, though, you think?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm not so sure if I believe that.
Right.
The drug testing, the random drug testing, did start in 2004, which is most likely when players started realizing how seriously baseball was taking it. And if you pay attention, the power numbers of some of the biggest power hitters in the games have started to decline since 2004,
Absolutely.
and pitching numbers have gone up. So, I mean, you could believe that if you'd like to. I would like to believe it mainly because I'm a supporter of baseball being entirely clean and men accomplishing what they can based on their own physical talent and not having any type of assistance. But only time will tell.
For me, I think the actual visual aspect, for me to open up on this, is really, really fascinating, because I feel like some players in the steroid era, the way their body transformed, that's what steroids do. It transforms your body. The way that they actually appeared really was significant. I remember seeing Sammy Sosa as a younger player and Mark McGwire as a younger player, and they were in phenomenal shape. But the years that they were breaking records, their shoulders went from this to like this. I mean, they looked like they were stuffing their shirts with paper. You know, it was so ridiculous. Now, A-Rod, especially in years with Texas, he didn't really look like he was juicing.
No, he's had the same physical stature about him for as long as I can remember, which is what has surprised me. We've often had discussions about whether or not he could be one of these juicers, or however you want to call it. But as big as he is, he doesn't look any different today than he did in 2002 or 2003.
Right, he keeps himself in incredible shape. I mean, from what I know, from what I hear, he's a health nut. I mean, the way he treats himself, what he puts in his body, I mean, brings his own lunch to the ballpark. He won't let people bring him drinks in the clubhouse. He'll always prepare his own drinks, whether it be water, Gatorade, whatever he drinks. But really just heartbreaking for the Yankees. But now who becomes the face of the steroid era? Now is it as of now it's Barry Bonds? Do you think A-Rod could top that? Or?
I think he could. I think a lot is going to depend on how he performs over the next couple of years. I mean, unfortunately for him, if he does well in the next couple of years, there's going to be speculation as to whether or not he's still taking steroids. If, on the other hand, he performs poorly this year, then everybody is going to criticize him and say that the fact that this information got out to the public has obviously affected the way he's played, and now is affecting the way he handles the team as well.
Yeah, he's put himself in a pretty tough situation, but if his numbers were to increase or at least maintain over the next few years, I think he could shut up a lot of critics.
I think he could. I think the fact that he came out and admitted it right off the bat also puts him in better standing than men who are basically going to court to back up the statements that they've made, which is that they have not taken steroids despite numerous positive tests.
Yep. So let's talk about the all-time home run record, probably the most religiously followed and most sacred record in sports. For those of you who don't know, Hank Aaron was the owner of that record originally. Barry Bonds broke it a few seasons ago under a ton of controversy. But A-Rod is 32, I believe, 32 years old, and he's already got close to 550 home runs. He's reaching that point. Is there any doubt he's going to reach that? What is it?
756.
756
is the number.
Is the number?
It's going to be terrible if we're wrong about that. But don't hold us to it. I think he could. I think he could beat it. I think he definitely has the time and the stamina and the build right now to do it. I mean, he's already performing in spring training. He had a home run in his first at bat, so it's just a matter of time before we see whether or not he can pull it off.
Yep. So do you think the off-field distractions? I mean, everywhere he goes. I mean, especially places like Boston. I mean, and Tampa Bay. He's gonna get heckled. You think that's gonna be enough to distract him?
No, I don't think so, because he's one of the most ridiculed players in baseball as it is. It's nothing he's not used to.
Yeah. I was heartbroken when I heard this news. I was in complete disbelief. Actually, the day I heard this news was the morning of Big Purple Growl. It was that day, and I was so excited for Big Purple Growl, and that put
such just a downer on my day. It was on my mind the entire day, because I think you put it perfectly, Joe. A-Rod was this white light, this guy that could do it on his own, didn't need steroids. He could knock the ball 450 feet, a few times a week, and it was without steroids. No. And now we find out that from 01 to 03, he was juicing. Let's take a look at Alex Rodriguez's numbers from 2001, 2002, and 2003. You can see the numbers just astronomical. Just 57 home runs in that one season as a Texas Ranger. But do you believe what he said when it came to when I decided to move to New York, I was traded to New York, that I had to take myself more seriously? Because you said it, 04 was when they started to do random testing, and that was also the same year he came to the Yankees. So maybe do you think that he started taking this a little bit more seriously and he stopped doping? You're really diehard set that he was doping throughout Yankee years.
I would like to believe that he gave it up, but I mean, at the same time, he's had 3 separate occasions to go on television and set the record straight, and all 3 times he's been proven to be a liar. This most recent one, where he said that he got these drugs from an over-the-counter prescription in the Dominican Republic with his cousin.
Yep.
Obviously, the research was done, and it wasn't available over the counter. It wasn't even available if you had prescriptions in the Dominican Republic between 01 and 03. So, I don't know. It's going to be tough to tell. But
Dominican Republic's been known to be a shady place. I mean, it's known as a very druggy area. So I'm sure that there's no doubt in my mind that he got it from the Dominican Republic. Maybe it wasn't the legal way that he got it, but I think I'm pretty confident that he got it from the Dominican Republic, because it's not a steroid that's really very commonly found in the States. It's popular amongst Latino players.
Exactly. You said it. Of the teams, of the players that have been accused of taking steroids in the past couple of years, most of them, the Texas Rangers, is the team that has the most amount of players who have been accused.
Huge,
which obviously makes sense, because it's a lot easier to get these things from Mexico and bring them right over the border into Texas.
Right. So you think that like from a geographical standpoint, you think that has something to do with it?
The availability of it in places outside of the United States, I think, definitely has an effect on who's been doing it.
Yeah, so Alex Rodriguez, definitely heartbreaking, but it's going to be very interesting to see how he does this season in a Yankee uniform with all the just distractions following him. It'll be interesting to see how he does.
It will be.
But it's not just the MLB out there that's been getting a lot of press lately. The NFL, the past couple of days, with all these trade things, Albert Hainsworth going to a new team. But the biggest thing is what's been happening with Matt Castle. He was considered probably the prize of the offseason, because Tom Brady came through with a comment about 2 weeks ago saying he's going to be ready for week 1. There's no way in the world that he's not going to be ready. He said his rehab is going phenomenally, and he's going to be ready. And if Tom Brady's the type of guy, I think if he says he's going to be ready, he's going to be ready. The Patriots believed him, and Matt Castle, the savior of last season for the Patriots, despite not making the playoffs, has been traded to the Chiefs. Good deal for them. They also got Mike Vrabel.
It was a great deal for the Patriots, and the Patriots have been known to be a great drafting team, to make great trades, and they're obviously always contenders in the AFC East there. It was a really good job. They made a move earlier in the offseason by putting the franchise tag on Castle, which basically means that he would receive the average of some of the top quarterbacks in the league, and he would not have an opportunity to sign elsewhere as a free agent. So they gave themselves a little more flexibility, whether Tom Brady was going to be ready or not. They could keep him around if they thought he wasn't. But instead, it turns out that the franchise player, Tom Brady, is going to be ready, and they made the most of the performance that Castle had last year.
Correct. And so the whole thing with Jay Cutler ensued a couple of days later with there being a report that he was on the trading block, with the whole Matt Castle stir going around, because a lot of teams wanted Matt Castle. If you had a choice between Jay Cutler and Matt Castle, who would it be?
That's a tough one. I'm going to have to go with Jay Cutler, only because I've seen more from Jay over the past couple of years.
Absolutely.
I mean, despite the fact that Castle had a great season last year and he took a team that nobody expected to contend after Brady went down, he got them a game out of the playoffs, and he performed way beyond anybody's expectations. At the same time, though, it was the first couple of games that he'd started since high school. So
right.
The fact that Jay Cutler has been a proven NFL quarterback over the past couple of seasons makes me feel like I would prefer to have him on my team.
Absolutely. For me, I was very surprised when I heard this story, because I think Jay Cutler is one of the best young quarterbacks in the league. Matt Castle, don't get me wrong, had a great season last season. Really fit into that offense really well. By the end of the season, he looked like a top-tier quarterback. But Jay Cutler, man, first of all, got a rocket arm, makes smart decisions in the pocket. He's remarkable. How young is he? He's young, and he's got bright years ahead of him. I was very surprised because Jay Cutler has steadily improved, and he has become one of the best young quarterbacks in the league over the past 3 seasons. Matt Castle had one good season.
That's true.
And you never know how he's going to fit in an offense that isn't commanded by Bill Belichick. Because, hey, he is a mastermind. You know, there's no dispute. Bill Belichick's probably one of the best coaches in the league, maybe ever. And being in an offense that isn't commanded by him, that may take a little bit off of Castle's game.
Well, a lot has to do with Scott Pioli, who was the general manager of the New England Patriots. He was made an offer by the Kansas City Chiefs to become their new GM. He took it, and automatically you see this young quarterback and this young tight end, Mike Vrabel, going right over to the Chiefs. So Scott Pioli knows a thing or two about who he wants on his team also. Absolutely. I don't think the Castle's going to have any trouble in Kansas City. It might take them a little while before they're able to mesh together and get something rolling. Obviously, they were 2-14 last season, but it's going to be interesting to see what Castle can do with a new team under a new coach.
Yeah, it will be very interesting. So Matt Castle is now out of the AFC East. He joins the Kansas City Chiefs. Good for him. Will be very interesting to see how he does. But let's go back to Albany for a second. Men's basketball is the story. It's really the story, man. They played a home game against Maine. We're going to get into that in just a second. But man, they have not been playing their best basketball. I think it starts with the injuries. Anthony Rafa not playing well. I'm sorry. Well, he's hurt. Let's correction. He's got at least 3 injuries, and he's probably done for the rest of the year. Luis Barraza, tendonitis. He's probably done throughout the year. How big were these losses for you all?
A couple of painful blows, especially the way that the team has been playing as a whole lately, not nearly as well as they should be, not nearly as well as they were playing at the beginning of the season. Obviously, as the season wears on and you expose yourself to these types of injuries, they're going to definitely have an effect on the team, and that's firsthand what you're seeing with the Great Danes basketball team right now.
Right, so going into the final 3 games of the season, they first played against Maine at home. They do follow up against on the road against University of New Hampshire and then UMBC. But we're going to go right to the highlights of the home game. They played Maine at Seth Arena. Let's take a look.
The Albany men's basketball team trying to end a 5-game losing streak as they take on Maine at Seth Arena. The men's team fighting for a higher seed in the American East Tournament. First half, Darrell Hastings was just a menace on the board, especially the offensive boards. He doesn't get this one to go, but more on him in a minute. I'm going to finish that up in a second. Watch here, though, as Mike Johnson finally figures out this awful Maine zone defense. He penetrates into the key, and look at how many defenders he draws. He draws all 5 Maine defenders, and that frees up Brian Connolly. He hits the silky smooth jump shot. It's good to go. But Maine didn't just roll over and die in this one. Watch here as Troy Barnes gets the athletic putback to go. 2 of his 15 points there. But Albany has a little luck on their side. Watch there as the pass goes through Brian Connolly's hands into the hands of Brett Gifford. And I wasn't going to leave you hanging. Darrell Hastings cleans up this mess here with the putback jam. Albany up by 1 at the break. Watch here, Tim Ambrose can't get the shot, but it's senior day. Brian Connolly gets the rebound. He puts it in. He had 15 points on senior day. Tim Ambrose nails the 3. He's not a senior, but hey, he's their leading scorer. He gets the 3 to go. And watch here, this one basically sealed it for Albany. Fittingly, Brian Connolly off the pick and roll. He gets the jump shot to go. Albany defeats Maine. Really big win for them as they plan to go on the road to take on New Hampshire and UMBC.
So at home at SEFQ Arena, the U Albany Great Danes, the men's basketball team, they defeat University of Maine. Really important win for them. I mean, yes, they were 8th in the conference, but it just really big to get their confidence up and get their home fans behind them. And really good game for them. But the biggest 2 games were after that, because after they finish the game against Maine, they're in a 3-way tie for 5th.
That's right, they were in a 3-way tie for 5th, and it just so happened that the next 2 games that they were playing were against the 2 teams that they were tied with, isn't it?
University of New Hampshire was the first game, and then UMBC was the second. So a chance to get that 5th seed, or possibly even a 4th seed if they can pull those 2 out on the road. But really, really disappointing. I followed those games incredibly via online, and it was just a very, very disappointing loss. They lost both on the road. I think injuries here are really starting to take a toll on this team. Anthony Raff is normally the starting point guard of this team, and Barraza, really their 6-man gives them a lift off the bench, and really just down the stretch, I think injuries are really hurting them here. But imagine how big it would have been for them to pull out those 2 wins on the road.
It would have been huge. Bump them up to the 4th or 5th seed, maybe playing a little bit easy, having a little bit easier of a contest in the first round, playing a 4 seed instead of a 2 or 3 seed, but it didn't work out that way, unfortunately. But following the trend of recent weeks was the basketball team was losing 2 very important games that everybody was really hoping that they were going to pull out.
Yeah, so they finished the season 1-7. Sour note for them, especially after beating Maine at home. Maybe they could get something going, but they lose those 2 on the road. But that doesn't mean that the season's over, Joe.
No. The America East Conference Championship is starting very soon, and Great Danes are in it again. Everybody remembers when we won it 2 years ago and went to the big dance.
Oh yeah.
Especially being at SEFQ this year, I expect the entire student body to be down there supporting the Danes. We need it now more than ever.
So let's take a look at the matchups for the America East Conference Championship, the tournament coming up. So first we have the play-in game. Now I think it's important to note that it was important for U Albany not to finish in the 8th or 9th seed and avoid that play-in spot, right?
It's true. It's one thing to be playing the top seed in the conference. It's a whole other thing to have to win a game just to get to that point.
Exactly. So not being an 8th or 9th seed is important. So we got Maine going into Hartford on Friday night. That's the first game. It's the play-in game. The winner of that's going to take on the number 1 seed Binghamton. What do you think? What do you like?
I got to go with Hartford, seeing as how you pointed out earlier the Danes have only won 1 of their past 8 games, and that game happened to be against the University of Maine. So they can't be doing much better than us right now. That makes me believe that Hartford has a chance to pull this one out and go against the Bearcats of Binghamton.
I'm going to go against you. I'm going to say I think Maine is going to pull this one out. I mean, the Hartford record in the America East, 2-14. That's pretty dismal. And I don't think if they were only to defeat 2 of 16 opponents that they've played in the America East, I don't think that they're going to really be able to pull out a victory against Maine. But that's not really the biggest story. The biggest story are the games coming up after that. The first one coming up after that, after the play-in game, is the big one, Vermont and U Albany.
That's us.
All right, who do you like?
I'm going to go with the Danes. We haven't been playing great lately, but the rivalry between U Albany and Vermont is well documented.
Rage is on.
It's going to be a repeat from the Big Purple Growl this year, and obviously the team's got a bitter taste in their mouth from that game, so I'm hoping that they'll be able to pull it together on their home floor, hopefully with their home crowd behind them, and pull off an upset.
I think the home crowd is going to be huge, but with how seeding worked out, the one team you Albany really wanted to avoid was Vermont.
That's true.
Vermont has tremendous experience. Guards Mike Trimboli, forward Marcus Blakely, who could win this year's America East Player of the Year. I think they're the best team in the conference despite being the 2 seed. So with the injuries, I can't see U Albany pulling this one out. I'm trying to be as an optimistic Great Dane fan as I can be here. It really hurts, but I can't see Vermont losing to U Albany, especially with Rafa and Barraza out and the way that U Albany finished, going 1-7 down the final 8 games.
It's going to be tough. It's not going to be easy.
No, it isn't. So if you're watching the show, get down there Saturday at 12:07 is your tip-off. Get there early. Get your seats because they need your help. They need a lot of energy in that building. Let's talk about the game after that. You got number 3 seed Boston University going against Darrell Proctor and UMBC, number 6 seed. What do you like?
I'm gonna stick with my trend of the upset. I'm going with UMBC, the number 6 over the number 3. You said Darryl Proctor is one of the best players in the conference. Jay Green, their point guard, is really at the top of his game right now.
Yep.
And I really think that UMBC is going to be able to pull this one off, despite the difference in their record.
I'm gonna have to agree with Joe here. I think this is the upset that happens in this initial round. I think UMBC has the players to really pull out an upset against Boston University. Boston University, some excellent players, but I think that if there's going to be an upset to happen in the first round, I got a hunch. I think UMBC is going to really pull this one out. I think Darryl Proctor could have a huge game, and Jay Green is just a hazard on the court. He's everywhere, playing great basketball right now, and he is known to be a big game player. So I'm going with UMBC also. And then the final game of the first round, we have number 1 Binghamton going against the 8-9 winner. What do you got?
Obviously, I got to go with Binghamton.
Binghamton.
You know,
I'm not gonna go into my pick. It's Binghamton.
It's not much of an argument.
Maine and Hartford are not teams that can really contend with Binghamton. There's no chance in the world for either of those teams.
We've seen what the Bearcats can do this year. Obviously, they don't have the experience. The team has not been together for long, but the time that they have spent together, they've really meshed together well, and I really don't see them having a hard time with either Maine or Hartford, whoever advances.
Excellent defensive squad, the University of Binghamton is, and they're gonna move on. So that's your America East Conference first round look. We're gonna have more next week. We're gonna have highlights of the U Albany game. That's gonna be awesome. Believe me, though I think Vermont is going to win, I'm hoping for a U Albany upset. That'd be huge for the school. That'd be awesome, especially this year being at South Q Arena. Let's talk about the women for a second. On senior day, they end up losing the final game of the regular season. They're not looking too hot, but they're the women. I have to throw something out there about them. Really, just not the greatest season for them. I mean, Brittany McGee had a good season overall. Janaea Aiken really did, but in the end, it was just not putting together a few wins together. And
unfortunately, they followed the same trend as the men did this year. You know, not being able to get the job done when it came to the clutch. But you know, the senior ladies will move on. They'll go on to bigger things, and hopefully, we'll have a good recruiting class next year and turn things around next season.
I think recruiting that's going to be huge for the women. They're losing a couple players this year, so. Hopefully the coaching staff can turn them around. But let's talk about Will Harris for a second. Going back to the men, I forgot to mention him. Will Harris, U Albany's not newest player, but their newest acquisition, transferred from the University of Virginia, and had some really high hopes for him going into the season. He was really a player that had a tremendous amount of raw talent. And they weren't utilizing him enough in Virginia. He wanted more playing time. He wanted to be that go-to guy. So he transferred to University of Albany. Plays here. Now, first portion of the season is your non-conference opponents, and he played very well. And even going into conference play, he was playing well. Let's take a look at the stats right now. You can see in the initially in 2009 from January into early February, guy was on fire. 18.9 points per game. I mean, he had a couple of really huge games for U Albany. He was just electric.
He was. It was fun to watch. You know, we thought we got this great new recruit to transfer to U Albany and hopefully into greener pastures and turn this team around for the better and get us back on our winning ways. But you know, it started to tail off towards the end of the season there. Yeah,
and then you look at going on from the first week of February on to basically now to the end of the regular season, just was a different player. He couldn't find the bucket. 9.6 a game, I believe, is the stat, and just really unfortunate. I mean, he was benched. He's now a bench player. They got Jarrell Hastings, who's playing some excellent basketball. He's starting right now. Really rough ends of the season for Will Harris.
Yeah, I mean, when you're lucky to have a player like Jarrell Hastings to replace a guy like that, but when one of your best players' production is cut in half, it's gonna affect negatively on the team, and it's gonna be tough to climb out of a hole like that. Absolutely.
So, but hey, we don't know which Will's gonna show up. Maybe Will Harris shows up and really lights it up against Vermont. I'm a believer. I think he could do it. He's the type of player that plays on emotion. So he puts a couple of shots in early on. He could really light up the scoreboard for U Albany and carry them to a win. But we'll see that next week. For now, let's go into Away Today. This week's Away Today. We're going to be talking about softball and baseball. Basically, primarily, let's talk about baseball. They opened up a doubleheader with playing against Western Kentucky, and they just got crushed.
No.
They just got creamed.
Yeah, difficult to watch, to be honest with you. Doubleheaders when you're giving up 13 and 17 runs, 2 games in one day, nonetheless, is really not the way you want to be starting off the season. Granted, it's the first 2 games of the year. The weather is cold. I feel the weather has much more of an effect on baseball players than it does lacrosse players. But really not the way that things.
No, not a good way. Doubleheader finishing 0-2. I mean, Corey Warings goes. This stat line is just not really very impressive. 2 2/3 innings pitched. He gives up 10 earned runs. Issued 6 walks. He really couldn't find the strike zone in that second game. Really rough for him. So hopefully some brighter days down the road for the baseball team.
Yeah, hopefully. Western Kentucky really looked like they were on top of their game. So I'd like to account the results of these 2 games to them starting off the season strong. But the Danes really need to focus on turning this around.
And then let's talk about softball for a second. The women recently got back from a trip to Florida. They played a good amount of games down in Florida play, and they finished pretty well. But the story was Leah McIntosh.
Leah McIntosh
Really just is incredible right now. Just really on fire.
Off the page right now. She played great. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves the way she started the season off. She's 5-0 already. She's got a .26 ERA. That's unfathomable. I mean, 8 walks and 60 strikeouts. That's 60, not 16.
That's unbelievable.
I mean, you got to take a double take and have a look at that one more time. But it's true. She's playing incredible.
Yep. Record is 5-0. 34 innings pitched, 60 strikeouts. It's really ridiculous. Gina Mason has been playing well. She's batting 385. She's been really well, but I can't believe Leah McIntosh. She had the perfect game in a 5-inning game.
Yeah.
That speaks for itself. A perfect game.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Get them all up, sit them all down. Really impressive. Congratulations to Leah McIntosh. Excellent start to the season. Keep it up. That perfect game is something you're going to remember for the rest of your life.
Congratulations.
Yeah, really, really awesome. But that does it for this episode of Sports Report. Thank you so much for tuning in. He is
Joe Rapolo.
And I'm JB Buno. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.